Greetings, everybody, and welcome to the Arnold or Stallone podcast, the first and only podcast dedicated to the movie careers of the two biggest names in 80s action movies, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone. I am your host, Tim, and joining me from his remote location is Darren.
Hello, Tim. It's great to be here. I appreciate the introduction, and yeah, we're going to have some fun today.
Yeah, and so today we're gonna kick off another episode of the Solo Stallone series that we've been working on. These episodes are basically when we first started doing this, the realization dawned on us that Sylvester Stallone has appeared in quite a few more movies than Schwarzenegger has, and so instead of just ignoring those movies, we're gonna shed some light on them. We're gonna discuss them. Just we don't want to overlook anything. We want to be as thorough with both these actors' filmographies, and so we figured the best way to do that is cut out some of these Stallone ones that may not compete very well with Schwarzenegger, and we're going to discuss them and give our overall takes on them, and so that's what we're going to do today. And again, if you are a returning listener, I'd like to say welcome back. If this is your first time checking us out, welcome. We're glad you're here. We're going to kind of give you a couple, maybe an hour of entertainment here. We're, kind of take your mind off whatever's going on. We're pretty straightforward. We just want to entertain, and so we figured the best way to do this is talk about the movies that entertained us when we grew up, because we both grew up in the '80s, and we're big fans of the action movie genre. And when it comes to the big names in action, there's none bigger than Arnold Schwarzenegger or Sylvester Stallone. And
Going to be our very first solo Stallone episode. So if you're interested in the our other episodes, definitely look those up. But this is kind of a unique episode for today, as Tim was saying. It's our solo Stallone episode, and it's the first of maybe a few. So this will be kind of interesting and different for any of you who've been returning and kind of know the normal format. This is just a little bit different, but kind of the same.
yeah. So we're just gonna talk today. We're gonna talk about 1984's Rhinestone. Like I say, it's just the one movie, so it's not. I guess if you're keeping track at home as far as who we've chosen up to this point, this one's not really going to fall in those parameters. But we just figure it's a fun way to talk about some, maybe not some of the Stallone's best movies, but like I say, we kind of want to shed some light on them. But before we get started, I'd like to invite all of you to check us out on the internet. You can find us at the ArnoldOrStallonePodcast.com. You can also email us at ArnoldOrStallone@gmail.com. And, every email we get, we will answer. If you have any questions, comments, opinions, maybe suggestions, hey, we're all ears here, so you can do that, or, you can also check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/the Arnold or Stallone podcast. And or finally, you can find us wherever you find podcasts. I mean, if you're listening to us right now on a podcast forum, then there you go. And so,
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So we're very excited to be here, and as I said, this is our first solo Stallone episode, and it's of course 1984, as Tim was saying, Rhinestone.
yep, 1984 Rhinestone. And just a quick correction for you there, Darren. I've done a couple solo Stallone, but this is our first
Oh,
together solo Stallone. So,
sorry, that's true.
yeah.
Yes,
But yeah,
yes,
this is the first
that
time
is
you get both
true.
of our opinion on it. Where the first couple I've done were just kind of
That's right.
keep the four or the show cranking. But yes, but yeah, this is our first this is Darren's first solo Stallone, and welcome to
This
solo
is our
Stallone,
yes.
Darren.
This this is my first. What am I saying? Our first. Correct.
But yeah,
So yeah.
so
Anyways,
1984's Rhinestone. I'll give the Rotten Tomatoes score real quick, which is probably no surprise. It's considered rotten with the critics at a paltry 19%. The popcorn meter is a little higher at 36%. This movie was directed by, who was this directed by? Bob Clark, and it's starring
Bob
Sylvester
Clark.
Stallone, Dolly Parton, and Ron Liebman, which 90s Friends fan would know him as Rachel Green's father. So,
That's correct. Yes, friends. Yeah, that is the best way to describe him. And he plays uh, Frankie, for Freddie. Sorry, Freddie
Yeah, Freddie
in the
Hugo.
movie.
Which
But
so you want
but
to kick us off on some Rhinestone there, Darren?
well, yeah. But before we get to that, let's go back to the director, of course, Bob Clark. And do you know what else he's directed?
Let's see.
He's directed little movies called
Yeah,
Porky's
that's right. Yeah. Also shows he directed A
and
Christmas Story.
The Christmas Story. Yes.
Wow.
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 That's 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 some that's some range, my friend. That
Yeah.
is some range. One of the raunchiest movies of the '80s, and probably one of the most wholesome
Right.
movies of the '80s,
And then
back to back.
yeah, that's
So,
yeah, definitely. Like you
well,
said, talk about range. I mean, God, I haven't seen Porky's in a million years, but makes me kind of want to. I found it
yeah,
at a pawn shop for like 99 cents and stuff. Like, everybody has to have a copies of Porky's in their video library.
yes, yeah, that's it. Not only Porky's, but Porky's 2 as well. He followed it up.
Oh, so,
So
okay.
that's yeah, and of course a movie called Black Christmas that I've never seen. I don't know. That's not.
I think
I
they
have to
remade
talk.
that in the 90s or
Interesting.
something because I remember it was kind of
Yeah.
a slasher Christmas movie.
So what I've heard about this movie that originally it was this is one of those movies that the director was changed at the last minute. So originally it's supposed to be directed by a different, I can't remember who else it was supposed to be directed by, but apparently it was a completely different movie and a different kind of a darker, more of a dark comedy
Hmm.
script with the original when Stallone originally signed up for it.
Yeah.
Apparently, is what the story goes. So yeah, so I with obviously with Bob Clark doing the these other comedy type movies, he'd want to push it more towards a comedy
Hmm.
style of a movie. So yeah, so anyways, Rhinestone. Let's what was your first thoughts off on Rhinestone?
So dear listener, Darren and I have not discussed our anything about this movie before. I remember this movie was always at the video store when I was eagerly looking for movies to watch. I always saw it. I never had the guts to rent it because you see Stallone there, sweet Stallone movie, and then right next to him is Dolly Parton, and it was kind of like, and so seeing that made me discouraged me from ever renting this movie as a kid. And I was actually talking to my wife about this last night. I'm kind of glad I never watched this movie as a kid because if I did, I would have had a completely different. I wouldn't have been able to, or yeah, I wouldn't have been able to go in open minded. So I'm going to say this, and for what I'm going to say, I don't want it to change anything you have to say, but I like this movie. To be completely honest with you, this movie made me laugh. Now, I didn't take it seriously. This movie made me laugh quite a few times, and not at a laughing at it, but just some of the jokes that were there I thought were funny. I thought Dolly Parton looked fucking awesome. She looked so cute in her little cowboy. I always forget how, cute she looked back in the day. I mean, she had that wholesome
Mhm.
Tennessee girl look to her. But no, I had a good time with this movie. Like I say, I was expecting to go in just rolling my eyes and scoffing at it, and just I was looking for things to tear it down. And like I say, it's not a perfect movie. It's definitely a cut by numbers. If you've seen Trading Places or any of those like She's All That or any of those other types of movies, that's what this movie is. But no, I was surprisingly enjoyed it. The second I watched it again last night to kind of get a refresher on it. I actually liked it more the second time than I did the first time, it surprised me. Like I say, I was expecting to just go in full guns blazing, just Mystery Science Theater 3000 in this movie or whatever. But I don't know. I liked it. I thought it was entertaining. So, what did you think of this movie?
Yeah, so I wanted to, like you said, I saw this movie when I was young when it first came out on HBO, but I was,
Mm-hmm.
9 something years old when it came out, whatever. I didn't understand the movie and didn't like it. Maybe saw it a couple times as you're flipping through HBO, kind
Mm-hmm.
of watch a piece here, a piece there. So watching it again. yeah, it was like watching it again for the first time. I didn't really, so it wasn't something that I could remember any parts of it or anything. So go
Yeah.
like you, I'm basically going into it as a
Yeah.
fresh, never seen it before. Like you said, always remember the poster in every video store had to have the Rhinestone poster of them arm wrestling
Mm-hmm.
on the poster of them sort of arm wrestling. That's can't remember. Yeah,
Yeah.
you never saw that in a video store without that. So, but no, I'm with you. I wanted to go in hating this movie and wanted to just tear it apart and just basically just make fun of it. And I actually was like, this isn't that bad.
No.
Kind of liked it.
Yeah.
There's definitely some cringe moments to it, but
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
it's not
Yeah. From what I
looking
was
back.
expecting to think about it and what it turned out to be, I was pleasantly surprised because when I was talking to my wife about it, I was like, well, if I would have seen this movie, say in 1985 or 86, is when it was at the video store, being such a metalhead that I am, just the country western aspect of it would have been like, I would have just been like, this is garbage, and I would have always kept that
Right.
in the back of my mind, going, I will never. But yeah, I enjoyed watching Stallone in this movie because, like I say, he made me laugh multiple times. Again, I think we. That's the good thing about what we're doing is I'm kind of watching his career basically blossom. This is his first
Mhm.
comedy movie that he's done, and
Mhm.
like I say, his range was amazing. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I don't think he gets the praise for being such a versatile actor that he is, because people think of him as Rocky or they think of him as, the explosion Rambo and, just the muscle bound guy just, shooting the machine guns and. But this movie, like I say,
Mhm.
this movie made me laugh quite a few times. And even on my second viewing, I laughed at the things I laughed at the first time, but I even noticed stuff the second time that I laughed at. So I had a good time, and I did. We've mentioned it before. I did buy this movie on DVD at the time. I was kind of like, ugh, God, I can't believe I'm going to own Rhinestone. But now after watching it a couple times, I'm like, you know what? I will definitely watch this movie again. I'm kind of glad I bought it
Mhm.
because, like I say, I'll definitely watch it again. Because, like I say, Stallone's funny. The story is not too bad. It doesn't, like I said, it's cut by
Yes.
numbers, but and Dolly Parton just looks.
Well, yeah, and like you said, Dolly Parton is just she is gives it all. You wouldn't even think she was in a bad movie at this point.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't. She's great in it. Well, he's good in it too, and they both have given it 110%.
Yeah.
And even though, as we said, he must have signed on to do a different movie and then they went more of a comedy route. He still gave it his all to
Mm-hmm.
try to get this the best performance he could, and she's great. And this was Dolly's second movie. So this was only the really second movie. We think of Dolly as because she's been in so many movies since then.
Mm-hmm.
But this was actually only her second movie. Big movie apparently.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. But she's kind of been talented right off the bat in a lot of ways. She's always real easy. And Stallone said he had a good time, and she said she had a great time at making this movie. So I think that just comes across
Oh yeah.
anytime people have a good time making a movie together. I think that definitely always just comes across as having fun.
Oh, I
So that
agree.
just,
Yeah, their chemistry was. It was very. I mean, you could believe it. Like I say, it. And again, not comparing movies now to movies then, but I enjoy movies then a little more because like we've discussed prior, is movies now are just so much eye candy and so much shit going on, and you don't really get a good story. Where this one, like I say, that they work well off each other. You kind of believe them, and I mean, yeah, it's a hokey premise, and there's really nothing behind it. But like I say, it was a good time. It's funny because Stallone actually wrote the screenplay for this too, and so
right.
it's
So, and the guy who also is credited for writing the other writer is credited
hmm
wrote Field of Dreams.
oh yeah,
So there's another sort of
yeah,
that's some range right there too.
right, yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
Field
not
of
just a
Dreams and a
couple
comedy.
yahoos coming in and
It's
writing
kind of
the yeah.
yeah. So anyway, so we kind of start off like, of course, the whole premise of this movie is let's just get into it. We starts off, he's in a taxi cab, and his name is Nick,
Yep.
and he's a sort of a stand-up comic taxi cab driver.
Right.
So
kind of your stereotypical New York cabbie.
right, and he and first, one of the first things we see is actually Freddie actually pulls up in front of his of course the name of the club is Rhinestone. It's a
Mm-hmm.
country bar in New York, and he pulls up there and he's got a sort of a pimp mobile,
Yeah, yeah.
and he's in sort of a full
Like a
a
big
full
white feathered coat or something, or fur coat or something.
big jacket thing, and I mean, what was his name? I can't remember. Freddie's. You said his name. I can't
It's
remember.
like Freddie
What,
Hugo, and so he's got
yes,
the
yes.
what his initials on every. It's like Laverne, where you got the FU on
Right.
all of his stuff.
He's he's awesome in
Yeah,
this movie.
I agree.
The character is he's awesome. Yeah,
I,
he's so funny.
it's like I love it.
This character.
The first thing he pulls in, and then the doorman, opens up the car, and he's like, "How's your night going, Mister Hugo?" And he's like, "I'm rich, so it's going great." I was like, okay, so that's
He's just
now we understand where this character's coming from. So
he's just such an asshole.
yeah.
He's so funny. Yeah. So he's just great. And anyway, so he goes inside, and apparently Dolly is working for Freddie at this Rhinestone Country and Western bar in New York. So um, now at the time, though, we got to remember that Urban Cowboy had just come out not too long before that, and
Hmm.
that really sort of was a unique time in American history. That was definitely a short time where everybody was wanting to be, it was very popular for even
Yeah,
people in New York to be,
yeah,
country, Western, the whole thing was very popular because of that movie.
yeah,
Uh, so for a short time at least, but that's why there would be this sort of country bar in New York at that time, because that was during that sort of end of that urban cowboy craze
hmm
that John Travolta sort of created. Um, you know, Going back to it, he Stallone actually just got in between this. He had right before this he had actually directed Staying Alive
Staying alive.
with
Yeah,
John Travolta.
yeah,
So that's just the tie into that. But anyways, so Stallone's driving around in his cab, kind of doing the stand-up routine, driving people around the city, and doesn't be going so good for him. Doesn't seem to be. Anyway, so back at the country bar, they have a sort of a I can't remember the rusty. They
yeah. It's like the
he
Possum Band or something, or is that what you're
well
thinking?
no well, I was thinking that they have the guy in black, and he starts singing this song at the bar, and they
Oh
go.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, and he has this kind of crazy song where it just gets crazier and crazier. The song goes on, and the whole crowd starts laughing at him. And so Dolly Parton decides, she tells him that Freddie, that he doesn't know what he's doing as far as running a club in a country bar.
yeah,
And so he basically tells her, she doesn't know what she's talking about, and they get into sort of an argument.
hmm
And she basically says that she can turn anybody into a country and western star.
yeah,
The next person that shows up in front of her.
yeah. The next I can make a country western star that won't get heckled to death, because of course the crowd's heckling him and just being obnoxious, and he's like, "Oh, you think you can
Yeah,
do better?" And she's like, "Well, I can make a bigger star." It's like, okay, well, what's it worth to you? And I think that's like Darren had said, that
right.
puts our plot, the wheels in motion there. So
So she makes a deal with Freddie that the next person she sees, she can turn into a country and western star. And he is all of a sudden they're kind of standing out on the street corner, and while they're making this bet, and Freddie says, "Well, if you can't, then you're going to have to sleep with me.
hmm
If you can't do this," and she says, "Okay." And I can't remember what she was getting out of it.
She was getting her
She was
because
getting,
she was under contract to him, and
that's right. She
if
was under
it, yeah, if
contract.
she would have won,
Right.
he would have given her or released her from her contract so she can, I
That's right.
guess,
That's right.
explore
Yeah.
bigger
So,
venues.
so she gets released from her contract, or she has to sleep with him, and
Hmm
he's just a real sleaze bucket type of guy. So,
That's what I love about this movie. It's like, yeah, you can have your freedom, but if you lose, then you got to give me a little,
yeah, it's just,
God bless
yeah,
the '80s, man.
I know. And he's just wearing the most craziest outfits.
Totally.
So, next thing you know, they're standing on the street corner to make this deal, and Stallone believes that they're looking for a cab, kind of hailing a cab, and he sees Dolly Parton, and so he quick shoots across 4 lanes of traffic and cuts
Yeah.
off a bunch of people and pulls up and immediately gets into a car wreck
Yeah.
as he pulls up because of trying to pick up Dolly Parton as a cab
Yeah.
fare. And so he gets out and he's pretty distraught. They they decide to talk to him. So they kind of ask him if he would like to kind of be interested in this being a country
hmm
singer, and to take him out to drinks. And he's more interested in Dolly Parton than
Yeah,
anything.
yeah. I love
And
when they were discussing that. Stallone's like, "Hey, man, can you kind of give us? I'm trying to make some time here. I'm trying to ask her out." And Freddie's
yeah,
just like, "No, no, we have other things we want to talk about." That made me laugh right there. But I guess
yeah,
just to take a couple steps back, when they're on the curb and Stallone pulls up and wrecks the cab. I love when he gets out of the cab. I didn't notice this the
mm,
first time, but he gets out of the cab and he looks at her and then he looks at whoever he ran into, and then all of a sudden he like realizes, and you see him cut back and just look at her again, just like, "Hey, how you doing?"
it's some pretty good physical comedy for sure.
Yeah,
So yeah, and so then he goes and he says no, and so then Dolly goes and does this kind of a weird calendar thing where she's got this kind of little outfit on where she's kind of got this. I don't know what was going on at that point, but so then they go and
yeah. So then Freddie's thinking that Stallone doesn't want to do it. Freddie's like, "Okay, well that's
that's
the
right,
bet, why you come on over?" And
over,
and then Dolly's like,
right,
"Well, you said you'd give me 2 weeks," and so
yes,
and then it cuts to the scene where she's at the cab company. Trying to find Stallone, and so she's talking to the cab boss, and like, "Oh yeah, the cab that got into an
she's
accident." And he's just like, "What accident?" And yeah,
That's right. And so she finds, yeah, she's kind of in, yeah. So anyway, so she's got that. She's kind of a crazy little outfit, and then
I
and
know they
so
put her in some of the cowboy or cowgirly-ish outfits of the time that were just like, they look good on her. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, okay, but
yes. So she goes to his locker. She kind of finally talks him into what's going to happen, and into finally becoming a country star.
yeah,
And he's kind of reluctant at first, but he decides he's going to do it.
yeah,
So and so there's kind of this like big this big organ joke that keeps kind of
yeah.
going on, and they keep sort of, she keeps saying, you just want to show me your big organ or
Right?
something,
Can
and
you
he's
play an
like, yeah,
instrument?
that's
Yeah, I got an organ I can play, and I love it when they're
right,
saying this. There's, he's like, I got a big organ, and then you look at the guy behind him, and he looks at Stallone, kind of giving him the almost wants to high five him, and it's like, come on over, and I'll show you my organ, and she's like, is this a
yeah.
real organ? Yeah, it's a big one. It's like,
So then they go to Freddie and they talk to Freddie, and everything they tell him that the deal's on.
mm-hmm.
So Freddie, and then Stallone says to a peacock, "I loved you on the 18."
Yeah, yeah,
There's a
because
lot of like really funny one-liners that are
yeah,
I kind of liked. I kind of liked those.
I
I was
mean,
like,
yeah,
that's kind of good.
because Freddie's apartment's just decked out into the most
It's just
abstract
outlandish.
stuff that you could, he's got the
It's what
coffee table with
yes.
three women's legs in a bent position, and Stallone's under the table looking at him. He's like, "You got a sister?"
It's pretty good as far as he just fits with that character. I mean, they did a
Oh yeah,
great job as far as that stuff goes. So there's some really funny ancillary stuff in this movie. It's just
yeah,
they really tried. Yeah. So uh, so they go back to Stallone's place, and it turns out to be a funeral parlor, and that his parents own.
mm-hmm.
And they have to go in through the fire escape.
Right.
So they climb up the fire escape, and it's very New York kind of a thing to do. You know,
Yeah. She's like, why
and
can't we
so
use the
they,
front door unless you want to walk through the bodies and the zombies and the corpses and
I know it was so funny. So then he comes in, and here's our cringe, warning, warning, first cringe moments. He plays the organ, Tutti Frutti. Just wish they would have cut that out. Or now, it's funny because Jim Carrey could
yeah,
have probably nailed that scene and made it where you're crying, laughing hard,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. That
he kind of went full like Jerry Lewis, and it didn't work.
yeah. It was
And
I was thinking that's probably one of the worst renditions of Tutti Frutti I think I've ever heard in my life. And, but no, he is
but
overselling it, and but
but
the the end joke got me.
but the end joke, but savior alerts, silver lining, hang with the scene because it pans down, and as he's going nuts on the organ, it pans down to an actual funeral going on at the time,
Yeah,
which was actually pretty dang funny.
yeah.
So
I laughed at both times I watched this movie. I laughed at that part both times.
yeah, very good. So, anyways, the dad, kind of a creeper.
Hmm.
He wants to he wants to get on Dolly as well.
Oh yeah,
He's got to go with Dolly.
yeah. I love when he
He
comes
keeps
up and
yeah,
Dolly's like, "Howdy," and Stallone looks at his dad and goes, "That means hi." And his dad goes, "Yeah, I know how to read. I know what that means." And yeah, he's just staring at her the whole time, and he's like, "Hey, if you need help, you can always give me a call, and I'll be right down here." Because the dad thinks that
yeah,
Stallone's trying to get on her, not understanding what
right,
their
right,
relationship
yeah.
is. But yeah, no, his dad was a little
Well,
weird, definitely, but
his dad, yeah, it's just they have dinner and it's kind of funny, and so they decide they're going to go to her hometown.
hmm
So they pack it up and they take a bus and they head down to her hometown. And now it becomes like a true fish out of water
yes,
uh, story. That becomes um, much like you were saying, the and as well as Crocodile Dundee or My Cousin Vinny. It's just
hmm
very much a
yeah,
fish out of water sort of story,
yeah.
which I love fish out of water
Oh, I
stories.
do
That's you
too.
can't go wrong.
Yeah.
That's I think it's great. So he's walking around like a crazy New Yorker, and he's giving them crazy handshakes. And her dad is actually played by uh, a famous actor. I cannot remember his name off the top of my head, but he he was very he's been in a million different westerns and stuff like that. So he was very famous for being in a lot of westerns and different. So he's
Yeah.
uh,
I'm trying to see
great
if I can
actor.
find his name here, but
But anyway, so yeah, so he's walking around. And he's talking to all the. So they decide to just he sings for him, and he sings warning alert number two, another pretty cringe. And I get it. He's supposed to sound terrible, so he sounds better at the
hmm
end.
yeah.
So, but it's still kind of just cringy. He sings another kind of cringy thing, and but then once again it kind of goes into something good where she teaches him how to start how to talk country and sort of with a southern twang
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how to then they kind of get into the whole thing and it's pretty good and then they sit down they start eating and she starts tell them how to eat country
hmm
and how cowboys and stuff eat and stuff like that.
You got to
And
mix your peas in your
he just
mashed
yeah he
potatoes
doesn't
and
want to. He
yeah.
doesn't, and I thought that scene was kind of funny because he's like I don't want to mix my peas my
Yeah.
potatoes or whatever and
He
she's
grabs a
like
biscuit and she's all, "What are you putting butter on?" He's like, "I want butter on my biscuit." "No, you're supposed to stop your gravy." "I don't want to
stop
stop
it
my
up.
gravy with I want
Yeah,
butter."
it was pretty funny. I thought that was a pretty good scene and they're kind of going back and forth and it does seem like they're
Yeah.
actual friends kind of bickering
Yeah.
and so it's just pretty good. So
I think one of my
so after
scenes
that
actually before you get started, keep going out. There's one when their dad picks him up at the because they're in Tennessee, and her dad picks them
Yes.
up, and on the way back to the farm, her dad's telling because Dolly Parton's
Right.
character's name is Jake, and he's saying, "Oh yeah, so and so's farm's got a hog with you should see the cojones on these things," and Jake is like Dolly Parton's character is like, "Oh, are they bigger than the last one?" And he's like, "Yeah." And so I love how engrossed they are with this conversation. He's like, "You want to go check it out?" And then they go to Nick, "Hey, you want to go check it out?" And he's like, "What? Pig bowls?" He's like, "Yeah." "No, I'm good." It's like, "Are you sure?" "Yeah, yeah, I'm
Yeah, I
good."
know. It's such. There's definitely some good. There's definitely some good, yeah, good one-liners in this movie that just come out of nowhere, and
Yeah,
that's what keeps you going on it. That's why it's a good movie.
yeah. So,
Um, so 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 here we go. So he goes, and this is actually another funny scene. So actually, um, after they go to after they have dinner, he kind of what they get in kind of an argument or something, and
hmm
he decides to kind of walk. He's going to walk down the road, and
yeah, he's like,
um,
"I'm done. I quit. I'm leaving."
so he goes. So they kind of get into a little argument after dinner, and he decides to start walking down the road, and he cuts to he sees a kind of foggy, all of a sudden, sort of a Friday the 13th feel,
hmm
and he says, "Taxi!" "Oh, hey, here comes a car," and he waves it down, and it's sort of the most craziest looking dude on the planet.
Yeah,
Just says, "Get in," and
get
it's like,
in.
no,
Yeah. So just the
and
back country bumpkin you can find. Get
yeah,
in.
just get in. He's just got crazy eyes, and I don't know if that's the same guy from Beetlejuice. I think he was in one of the dead guys in Beetlejuice.
He looked familiar to
Looks
me.
familiar.
Yeah,
So if
I
anybody
couldn't.
watches this movie, you'll recognize him.
Yeah,
Anyways, yeah. So and he won't get. I thought that was a pretty
yeah.
funny scene. Just out of nowhere, it just turns into a really
He's like, "You're
creepy.
backing up
Uh,
traffic. Where I'm working for the police or something. Get in.
yeah,
No, I'm not. Just on your way." So it's like,
yeah. It's
yeah, that was
really really good. I like that. So, and of course that he goes to a bar and it's introduced one of my absolute favorite actors of all time. I forgot to mention this from the start. I'm sorry not to mention this. Tim Tomerson
hmm
is one of my absolute favorite actors of all time. Uh, I think he's one of the greatest character actors. Of course, in this movie, he plays Barrett,
hmm
the kind of the country singer at the local bar,
yeah,
and but he is one of the funniest actors. I mean, he's been in, and so for people that don't know who Tim Tomerson is he's been in a ton of things. I mean, once you see him, you'll go, "Oh yeah." I mean,
hmm
he was the bad guy in Volunteers. He was the sort of
hmm
he was Annie Potts's boyfriend uh, in Who's Harry Crumb.
Yep. He was in
Uh,
Iron Eagle. He was the
he was
criminal.
the dad. He was the dad in Iron Eagle that they go save.
hmm
You know, so and he's been in just a lot of like serious roles too. He was in a couple movies where it's a Gene Hackman movie where they go Medal of Valor or something like that. I can't
hmm
remember the name of that movie, but where they go back to Vietnam, and it's really serious, heavy movie. Yes, guy's got range. Anyways, he's a great comedian and a great actor. So uh, hats off to Tim Tomerson.
Yeah,
So
I loved him in this.
uh,
I thought he played that character awesome.
so as we were saying, so he runs into Tim Tomerson at the bar, and his name is Barnett,
Yep.
and he's in a crazy outfit, and he plays a crazy character for sure.
Yeah.
He's just nuttier, and so they're hanging out at the bar together, and they're getting drunk and they're having a good old time. And so he wakes up the next morning, Stallone, and he's drunk and he's hanging out he's in the ditch basically, and so Dolly's asking him, hey, why? And he kind of explained to Dolly like, hey, I can kind of the way the way he showed me, I could kind of understand. And so she's kind of getting upset that that Barrett is doing a better job of training him to be a cowboy than she
Yeah.
is. And uh, turns out that Barrett is Dolly's ex fiance.
Mm-hmm.
So they apparently had to have a past together. Um, so then they start to get to, so we get back to the actual, back to the singing. So Stallone actually has his first song in this movie, and it's called, and he's in a super crazy outfit, which is, it's meant to be.
Yeah.
It's funny. And in the movie, and the song, of course, is called Drunkenstein. So, which it's actually kind of a funny song when you listen to it, and he actually didn't do too bad.
Uh-huh.
And it's actually kind of a catchy too. At first, you think this, and it's talking about Budweiser turned me into Drunkenstein.
Yeah.
So it was pretty, and it's not too bad. It's actually kind of a funny song. So anyway, so he sings that. He's doing good, and they go back to the bar, the local bar. They're hanging out, and Dolly and Stallone actually start to look like they're actually enjoying each other's company at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of arguing all the time, they're sort of kind of hitting it off a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, Barnett, he doesn't like that because that's her ex fiance, and he decides, well, I'm gonna start swinging on Stallone.
Yeah.
And now let's say Stallone doesn't take his shirt off this entire movie.
Yeah.
So he's strictly going on his acting, not any of his,
Right.
muscles or anything like that. Even though he's in some of the best shape of his life, you can tell.
He still looks great,
So I don't care who you are, you're not going to swing on Stallone in that, in 1983, 84, whatever
Right.
that is, you
Yeah.
know.
Like, don't you realize this guy just won the World Heavyweight Championship last year?
I'm like, I wouldn't swing on a guy look like that in a t-shirt. So
It's
anyways,
funny. It's funny too how quick Barnett, switched or swapped because they show up to the bar together. They're the best of friends. They're drinking beers, and they're laughing, and
they're having a good old time.
then all of a sudden Dolly shows up and they start dancing, and Barnett's just like, "Ooh!" And then of course Barnett's friends are like, "Oh man, I wouldn't want to make my woman making me look like a fool," type of deal, And as Jared said, then the fists start flying, or the fist, I should say, because there really isn't a fight, but.
And and then they have a pretty good little brawl. It's kind of funny, and she gets Dolly's yelling at him, and it's pretty good. So
and I loved it too that it didn't turn into the, like, when you think of 80s bar fights, the whole place turns into chaos. I liked how they didn't do that, like, because Barnett punches out Stallone, and Stallone's, oh, okay, gets back up, and then Dolly, no, don't engage him, and then they end up leaving, and Stallone's ego's all bruised, and and so I just loved how they, like I say, it just didn't turn into a free for all where chairs are flying and bottles are being broken and
typical,
stuff.
Because they could have gone that cheesy route and low-hanging fruit and done exactly that. Yeah, and actually they didn't. So it's actually one of the few. So it actually is refreshing that they didn't go that. Yeah, like you're saying, because we don't need to see another bar fight with guys hitting each other with chairs.
Right. Yeah.
So, so Barnett gets mad, like we said. They get into a fight, and they kind of take off, like you're saying. They go back to her house, and they're hanging out, and there's kind of a montage, and he starts to really he's really learning how to play, and they're getting along, and she's teaching him, and he's kind of figuring everything out.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of like it looks like they're falling in love a little bit.
Right.
And they sing their first duet, and it's actually pretty good.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, it wasn't that bad.
It sounded really good together. I mean, I probably sound good with Dolly Parton,
right?
So but he actually did a good job. So they start to do good, and he's doing better. The dad decides he's going to go ahead and give him his jacket, and his dad's on the side and gives him the sort of crazy sort of country jacket it's pretty cool looking, but it's just it's like his jacket that he wore when he was a kid or whatever.
Yeah.
So But it's pretty cool. And then they all of a sudden we go back to New York, and his training is over,
Yep.
so to speak, and they're ready. They got a time limit, so they get back to New York. So they get back to New York, and and they kind of they go and she tells him that for some reason that he wouldn't make it.
Yeah. Yeah, because he's thinking,
it
this is like the beginning of his new career. Because when the bet was originally made, Dolly would get free of her contract, and Freddie would buy Stallone a cab, his own cab, because he got fired from his last cab job because he wrecked the cab, and so
because he wrecked the cab.
yeah,
Oh, that's right, and
yeah, and
that's what we
so
forgot to say is why. Right. Why he agreed to do this was Freddie was going to fix the cab. I
yeah,
think we forgot to say
yeah,
that.
so
That was the main reason he agreed to do
but
this.
Stallone
I don't know
thinks
if we
that,
said that or not.
yeah, so Stallone thinks that he's like this is his first step towards country superstardom, where Dolly's like, well, you're just gonna go back to being a cabbie, and yeah, and then that was
Right.
that was kind of an interesting scene, and then I think that's where she also lets it slip that if she loses, she's like, I might as well go sleep with Freddie. Well, unbeknownst to Stallone, he didn't realize that was part of the bet. He just thought she was going to be free of her contract, and of course he gets all, "What? You're going to sleep with Freddie?" And she's just kind of like, did I say that?" type of thing, and of
Hmm.
course, then the misunderstanding gets because they're having it's like Stallone's family is a big welcome back, and because they're the big Italian family, and yeah,
Hmm.
it was it was a nice little drop of drama, I think, in there, just to kind
Yeah.
of like, oh, okay, is this not going to happen, or so
Yeah. Yeah. And so she basically lets it know that Freddie is gonna and so he's kind of been kind of falling in love with her. So
mm-hmm.
to think that Freddie is gonna be able to sleep with her kind of makes him even more upset. And so they basically they kind of break apart, and takes off, and she kind of has Dolly has her own sort of solo song that she
Mm-hmm.
sings, and of course it's Dolly Parton, so you got to have her at least sing a song in a movie. You'd be crazy not to, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
so she kind of sings, and then she kind of says, well, she feels bad about what happened. She's telling someone about that, and she decides that she's going to try to make it up to him, and so the night of the concert finally arrives, and uh, Dolly's over at Freddie's house up at his apartment, and she's telling him, hey, this, because she's not sure that Stallone is actually going to come through for her.
mm-hmm.
So she's trying to get out of the contract.
Mm-hmm.
And Stallone doesn't know he's actually going to go through with it either, but he decides that he is. And he finds out that basically that she's at Freddie's, and that, basically what's going to happen at Freddie's house. So he decides he's going to
he's
take
gonna,
off
he's gonna
and
try
go
to
over
stop
there
it. Yeah,
and finish what's going to happen. Yeah, stop what's going to happen.
yeah.
So he's in his that costume
Oh God, that
for the
thing.
actual
Yeah,
for the concert, which is just as
think of the
outrageous as it gets.
rhinestoniest, sparkliest, like Back to the Future, like Back to
It's
the Future 3 when Doc sends
the
Marty
three,
back,
yes,
but
yes,
the thing just covered in rhinestones and tassels, and
yes.
yeah,
It's just hilarious
yeah,
looking.
it was
Just like
awesome, but
so
yeah, it was loud as
it was
fuck.
yeah. There's a lot of ancillary stuff in this movie. That's good. And so he decides, of course, can't find no taxi's gonna pull over for him,
Mm-hmm.
and he sees a horse.
Yeah,
So he runs over, jumps on the horse, takes off, starts riding down New York, Manhattan, or wherever they're at. I'm
yeah.
not sure. I don't know New York well enough. And goes down to New York, and or he's going actually to Freddie's apartment.
Mm-hmm.
So he shows up to Freddie's apartment, and right when he rushes in to just about to stop, Freddie from attacking the defenseless Dolly Parton.
Right.
Dolly Parton, we see Freddie come flying out of the apartment after Dolly Parton decked him
Yeah.
good enough to lay him out clean. So
I love
no
to.
need to
Yeah, no need
no
for him
need
to
for the
help her.
saving.
I loved when
Yeah,
he was
no
trying
need
to.
for the savior.
I loved when he was trying to break down the door and he kept like falling on his ass. That made me laugh
Yeah,
too because it was so uncharacteristic of Stallone. Like I say,
right.
when you
Yeah.
think of Stallone, you think
So
of this badass, but
well,
he,
and they make it, and they definitely set it up to make it look. And once again, they kind of
yeah, it's a good,
they zag when they zag,
yeah,
and it's funny that they did that. And actually, that's why this movie is good because it does.
yeah,
Nowadays, it would have gotten a much higher
yeah,
review, I think, because yeah, it definitely
yeah, like,
So yeah, uh, so she she dukes out Freddie, and they take off. They jump on the back of his horse that they've got still, and they take off to the concert.
mm-hmm.
And he sings his and so this is the final. This is sort of what we've been all waiting up to. He sings his a song, which wasn't bad,
No, it wasn't. Yeah, it
and
wasn't horrible.
no one's there to listen. No one thinks
Right,
Stallone is going to be a singer.
right.
So, but it wasn't bad. I
You're not
mean,
there for his singing prowess, that's for sure.
you're not it's not there because we're not there to see Babs.
He's all blue eyes up
It's
there
Stallone.
serenading us. It's like, oh, you got Stallone tonight. But yeah, no,
So yeah, I mean,
it's funny because my wife was
it's
like, "Man, he
Stallone.
is not a singer," and I'm like, "Well, yeah. I mean, that's kind of the point, but yeah,
I mean,
which is funny because when he sang for the Paradise Alley, I mean,
yes,
I thought that his singing for that movie was a little better than this one, but yeah, like you said, it's not terrible. It didn't take
and he
me
was
out of it.
singing in Lords of Flatbush. Remember, I
Hmm.
think he sung for a minute, like
Yeah,
just
yeah,
in the mirror or something.
yeah.
I think, yeah. So yeah, so it's not. Well, his brother's a singer, so
Right.
I mean, if it, and you can get pointers from your brother, and actually, Frank Stallone actually is pretty good,
Uh huh.
uh,
Yeah.
musician. So so anyway, so they have and then of course they do the second duet, which is actually pretty good
Hmm.
again.
Yeah.
So they do the duet, and
Yeah. He wins over the
uh,
crowd, and everyone's
over the crowd, and Freddie realizes it's
it's like,
over,
dang, and that,
and he lost the bet,
yeah.
and
And I love Freddie asks
yeah,
him, he's like, so is she as good as I think as she is? And Stallone's like, way better. So Fred, he's just like, oh. But yeah, and then
yeah,
they
it's
sing
pretty.
off and roll credits, and you know,
Yeah, and so and then they have they but first they kind of have this sort of banter back and forth, where they kind of are like a Sonny and Cher
yeah,
almost routine going back and forth.
yeah, that's right.
And so you can tell this is probably going to be maybe their act from
Hmm.
now on. They'll maybe take this sort of show on the road, and could possibly be a new beginning for them. It's sort of a
Yep,
little ambiguous ending, and they just kind of roll the credits.
yep. They
But
serenade us with
uh,
song, and there you go.
but no, it was not nearly as bad as it could have been. It's got some funny parts, and and so Dolly actually said that this was her favorite soundtrack. This was she actually said this was some of her best writing she's ever done. The
Hmm.
soundtrack to this movie. So if you're if you're a fan of that genre of music, absolutely get the soundtrack.
Yeah,
And
yeah, definitely. If you like country
she says
western,
it's she said it's definitely the best some of her best work ever. And like I was saying at the start, Stallone and her said they had more fun on this movie than any other movie they've ever made together. And he said that she was the best leading actress he's ever had. So as far as getting
hmm
along, so it's
yeah,
like I said, it comes across on screen. This was Stallone's first Razzie,
yeah,
so
yeah.
unfortunate first Razzie for Stallone.
Yeah, because I was
But
reading that this is one of the movies he regrets making, which I get it at the time because he was on such a
mm,
hot streak. Because I was thinking about it too. It's like this movie came out after Rocky 3, which was
yes,
unquestionably at the time his biggest movie, and then he made this.
hmm
It's
hmm
interesting how this didn't really like ruin his career because he turned down the role in Romancing the Stone to make this movie. Uh,
yes, yes. I was
you know,
about to say that. I mean,
which
I'm
that movie
glad.
was. Yeah, I mean, can you imagine if he would have made Romancing the Stone? Like I always think, oh, what would have been type of thing, but it's interesting.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, it definitely would have been the same kind of movie.
Hmm.
Definitely would have been different. But yeah, no, it's I think I'm glad that he made this movie now.
Yeah,
Because
no,
like I said, going back to watching it, this is sort of a hidden, rough little gem. Not
yeah,
quite polished, not quite great, but it's a little thing to,
yeah, no,
just to have to watch to entertain you,
I agree
especially.
100%. Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those. It I felt it's one of those movies that because 80s movies has a way of like making you feel when they're all done. You kind of feel uplifted, and you're like, oh, this movie
Mhm,
made me feel that, Because like I say,
mhm.
I'm not a country western fan by any means, but um, I like the country western, and I thought it was, the jokes were there, the songs were there, the
Well,
chemistry, and
I actually liked Drunkenstein or whatever. I actually kind of liked it. I actually
yeah,
was like, it had the steel guitar playing, and it reminds me of like the Dukes of Hazzard, kind of their
hmm
background song, music when they did, from the show.
which
So
is funny
yeah,
because that singer that came out in black at the beginning, I thought that was Waylon
yes,
Jennings. It sounded like Waylon Jennings when he started singing
yes,
it. But so I looked over everything. I'm like, that's got to be Waylon Jennings. But nope, that wasn't Waylon Jennings. I'm like, because I don't know what he looks
yeah,
like. I just know the voice. For like you said from the Dukes of
yes,
Hazzard, and
yeah.
I'm like, I could
No,
have.
I don't.
I don't know if it was a
Mhm.
Waylon Jennings impersonator or whatever, but it was.
Yeah, no, I don't know. Yeah, I think it was supposed to be like a Johnny Cash or
Hmm.
Waylon Jennings type
Yeah,
of mashup or something between. Yeah, so but no, that was good. I mean, an all around great cast. Uh, uh, Cringy moments, but luckily the cringy moments only last for a few seconds.
yeah,
They're not like a drawn out. It's
yeah,
like it's a quick. It's almost like a band-aid. It's
yeah,
okay,
yeah. It's
but
tolerable.
okay,
Yeah,
we're back to the good stuff.
yeah.
So
No, I agree. Like I say, as I said earlier, I had every intention of not liking this movie. Of just, like I say, I was
mhm,
ready to roast the shit out of this movie. But
yes,
when
yeah,
but
I
I
wanted
was,
to.
yeah, me too. I thought this was going to be just we're going to tear it down, we're going to set it ablaze, and then we're
Yeah,
going to piss on the
hmm
ashes and walk
yeah.
away and never
Now,
think of Rhinestone again. But
oh,
I'm pleasant.
yes, and
I'm wrong.
now yeah, like you said, now you're happy she bought it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, you could put that in the rotation every
Yeah.
every 6 months, every other year or something.
Yeah.
Play that thing.
And
It's
like
worth it.
for sure, and that's why I like why we're doing this because, like I say, there's stuff that I know that I love that I'm watching for the first time in years, and then, for
Mhm.
example, this where I thought, but my complete idea of it has been switched. And now I'm looking forward to some of the other movies that I thought, I don't know if I mean, when we get there, there's one that I remember coming out specifically. I never saw it, but I ended up buying it. I haven't watched it yet, but when we get to it, I will we'll discuss at that point. I'm hoping that's going to
Mhm.
kind of be like this, where it's just like,
Mhm.
because like I say,
Mhm.
I remember this. Like you said, this movie poster is burned into my memory from childhood because I saw this at every video store I went to. I saw the video at every video store. The poster was in every video store on every wall, but I never had the guts to rent it. Um,
Mhm.
like I said, I'm kind of glad I didn't because had I did, then I may not have gone
Yes.
in as open minded as I did. But now, here we are, what, 42, 41 years later. I'm like, you know what? Like you said, this movie, it was fun. It made me laugh. And
Mhm.
it's such a
Yeah.
rarity nowadays where, there's
Oh,
comedies
and
that don't make me laugh.
it's very lighthearted. It's very it's not uh yeah, it's very just sort of it's even semi-family friendly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
most part. I mean, it's just sort of it's just kind of a feel good movie that just doesn't really it's not you can just watch it and be like you said entertained.
Yeah.
It's nothing.
I mean, thinking about it right now, it's not even like crude humor. And I love crude humor. This has
Yeah,
none of it.
and
It's just straightforward
and
comedy where there's
for
some.
us, yeah, and for us to like a movie that doesn't have a ton of crude humor is
Yeah,
that actually is a comedy
right.
is going to be a rarity. So
Yeah,
I should just tell you alone, it was good enough for that. So just because of the characters and the acting and everything is what like we said. So,
yeah.
but but like I said, it was originally supposed to be a dark sort of a darker type movie that was either a dark comedy or even like a dark thriller.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking this probably what Cobra turned into,
Yeah,
but that's a story for another time.
yeah, yeah. And we're not too far away from Cobra, so I'll save that for.
Exactly.
but
Yep, that's a story for another time.
yeah, yeah. So that
Exactly.
was. I'm gonna say that was
That was
the pleasant surprise. Like I say, that was Rhinestone. I mean,
if you have the time, check it out.
yeah. I mean, it's a shame that it's not streaming anywhere. I mean, I kind of understand why
Mhm.
it's not because it didn't do very well, but. I think
Uh,
anyone that's
I think
interested and they find it or it pops up somewhere, I'd check it out.
well, and I'm surprised a movie like this hasn't become a cult classic because
True.
usually movies that are underrated at first and then years later, people, because this is a good movie. This isn't bad, and
Hmm.
so for this not to be a cult classic is kind of a shame. But maybe, like you said, because it's not as available
Hmm.
to everybody, that it hasn't really become. But yeah, I think it should be. We
Yeah.
should push
Yeah.
for a cult classic. You know,
Totally. If you're
to go
listening to
viral.
this and you want to see Rhinestone, make it happen.
It can happen. Exactly.
So
Have the push.
yeah. So well, right on. So there's Rhinestone. That's that's this solo Stallone. I'm looking forward to our next Arnold or Stallone is going to be another just monstrous episode. We are going to be looking at Predator or Rambo First Blood Part 2. So that's kind of why we
The
wanted to,
monster.
yeah, that's why we kind of wanted to do this one standing alone because I don't know how well this one would have stood up next to Predator because Rambo Part 2 and Predator are two more movies that I just loved and I'm looking forward to, watching them again. It's been a short while since I've seen either one of those movies, but yeah, so that's
Yes, I'm gonna have a ton to talk about. Absolutely.
yeah,
So
so
this next episode is gonna be a monster. So stay tuned. We're gonna have fun. Can't wait.
So, alrighty. So, until then, I just want to say thank you for checking us out. If you want to help us out, maybe wherever you're listening to us on, if you want to give us a review or a share or, just push us out there, we appreciate it. If not, that's fine too. We'll still be here. Um, Anything you'd like to add there, Darren?
No, we appreciate all the listeners and we'll talk to you soon.
Alrighty. And until next time, we'll see you then.